Hey, editing me here. Okay, so just like a quick thing before you watch this episode. This episode is super specific to me. So if you don't want like a super personalized experience to what this could feel like, I don't know if this is for you, but just know that if you're watching this because you came like to get some advice, that it's gonna suck. It's gonna be really cliche that you're gonna hear this a million times, but you're gonna probably get over this if the other person never reciprocates. And it's going to take a lot of work, probably. But the best advice I could give you is disconnect yourself from the situation as much as you don't want to hear it. Um, I will go into detail about the things that I went through in this episode, and if you want to stay and listen, go ahead. If not, like I I didn't listen to shit when people would say, "Oh, you have to like not talk to them." I remember I was looking for people who had answers of the things I wanted to hear. And yeah, I specifically remember clicking off of people who said, "Well, you need to disconnect." I'm so sorry, but it's the best advice you can probably get. Trust me. If you want to hear why I talk about it, or at least I talk about my feelings about things, and yeah, yeah. Hey. Okay, so this is gonna be kind of a weird episode because it's just gonna be me, and I'm so sorry. I don't know how I'm gonna be by myself because I like having other people in the room with me. It makes it feel very different. I'm already feeling very nervous. But hey, how you guys been? We kind of missed an episode last week because, well, we're busy. First of all, also Pob's internet has been dead for almost a week, I think, or maybe a little more, and we're waiting for that to come back. He's got a Bible full of notes to come back to, which is going to be interesting. Um, Today I was going to record with Stealth, but he is also busy today. But it's an interesting topic for sure that I want to discuss. Ooh, and I'm already feeling nervous. I don't like this because I didn't want to do it alone, but maybe it's like the best way to go about it. If you see the title, you already know what it is. And if you know me personally, you probably know the person involved. But before I get into anything, before I like start talking about it, I guess the first thing I want to say is if you're here because you're like looking for advice, or you're looking, I don't know, to get like somebody's perspective, right? That might be going through the same thing. I'm going to give you, I think, advice that I would have appreciated. Because I know when I was having these feelings and these emotions, the first thing I did was I went to Google and I was looking, I don't know, for stories of somebody. And it would always be like this really long thing. But I'm going to tell you right now, right away, what I think is the best thing to do. And you're not going to like the answer to that. And the answer to it is to remove yourself from the situation, to remove yourself from this person, to just get some space for you and not work on yourself necessarily, but definitely take a look at why you have these feelings. And I'm going to tell you that it's tough. It's not easy, and your feelings are valid. Like, I don't know. I feel like a lot of the times when I had the perspective and I guess the privilege of being friends with this person for almost like the entire time that I had like a healing from when I fell in love with him to the healing ending, if that makes sense. I got to talk to him about it. I confessed how I felt. I tried to, change myself. I tried to be a different person. I guess I kind of, in a way, tried to change him. I was hopeful, I went through like the full spectrum of feelings. Um, but yeah, like this is basically just gonna be the story of me falling in love with my street best friend. And like kind of just the fallout of that. We're not friends anymore, and it's not that I don't see a future, but through like this whole thing, I've lost so many people that I would consider close friends that it just, I don't know. I don't have this persisting hope, right, that he's like gonna return, and it's like the way that I'm able to like get through this, I guess. The reason I say you need to separate yourself and you need to remove yourself from the situation is because I didn't want to. I really, really like spending time with him as a friend. Like, I didn't fall in love with this guy immediately. This was not something that happened like in the span of a couple of months. It happened in like the course of a year, or maybe a year and a half. And it was really weird because in the beginning, we were just really good friends. And it was like any other person for me online where I didn't want to spend too much time with them. I liked being by myself. I liked playing Overwatch alone and grinding that stupid game competitively. And when I met him, it kind of turned into like him always asking me like, "Oh, are you gonna play? Are you gonna get on?" And I'd be like, "But like I'd ignore him, or I'd like be like, no, I'm busy. I'm gonna do stuff," and I would just go offline and play. I remember, like I thought he was annoying at the time. I'm gonna be honest, because I didn't talk to anybody in any capacity online through like Discord and stuff. But as we went on, I started to get to know him a little more. I'm like a sucker for emotionally investing myself into people, and that's kind of what happened in the beginning. He was like not feeling great. Work was going bad for him. So I was like, well, I better make sure that, you know, this person's doing okay. So I started checking in on him from time to time. And we started like playing more games together. And I found out he liked recording videos, and we would start like making games and videos together. And it just kind of like turned into this big thing, right? I knew he was straight. He had like told me about it, but I never like flat out told him I was a homo because I didn't think it was necessary. I met some of his friends, and like he asked them, and then one day he did ask me, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I asked my friends because they had a suspicion," and like their friends were like, "Really, you couldn't tell?" But yeah, like about like a year in, I want to say, yeah, I don't know the timeline too well because I don't want to go back into like our DMs and check. So like I'm so sorry if the timeline's like a fucking mess, but just know that it snowballed into this. Okay, it didn't happen right away. It was not like me falling head over heels for this person. And when I did realize I was starting to have feelings, I was denying them to myself. I was telling myself, no, it's just, you just like spending time with him because he's funny, he's cool. It was like a big denial for me. I remember because it was like, I was embarrassed because, you know, obviously I knew he would never be able to like reciprocate those feelings. And it just felt easy, I guess, to tell myself, no, you don't have that. It's not. If it just felt easier to tell myself no, that wasn't real. But oh man, I didn't think it would be this hard to talk about it, but here we are. Eventually I did like get the courage to send him a message, and I basically confessed to him that you know, I did find him romantically interesting. And I remember thinking, oh, this is like gonna be the worst thing I do. It's like, it's gonna be like a mess. He's not gonna wanna talk to me anymore. And I was like, okay, whatever. Like I hadn't known him for that long. It was a year. And it's worse now because like we did go through so much, but at the time, right, it didn't. I was just like, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. And keep in mind, this was after I spoke to a bunch of different people, and I wanted to get other people's like opinions on what I should do. And I think it was a big mistake to do that. Like hindsight, right, is 2020, but it was a big mistake for me to go to so many different people and tell them. And if I'm being honest with myself, I was just looking for people to like validate my feelings. And it just, I don't know, I didn't feel like, I didn't feel like I didn't feel like my emotions were like valid enough, I guess, on their own. I don't know. It was weird. But if you're going through this, I do not recommend you do that. Like, sit with yourself, be honest with yourself. It's the best thing you could do. This happened like 5 years ago, by the way. Like, this was like the beginning, I want to say 5 years ago. And I'm like such a different person. It's crazy because of this one experience. It kind of like turned into like a bunch of little experiences in and of themselves. And it's very strange to think about. But yeah, like basically after that, he told me like, oh, I never noticed. I don't really care. Like, we can still be friends. He told me, he's like, I really like you. And it's just nice, right, to have somebody there. And it felt really good when he said that, because like obviously I didn't want to lose a friend, but I don't know, it felt like it wasn't a big deal, right? But I don't think, and it's not his fault, right, that he fully grasped what I was trying to tell him, maybe. Because, I mean, how could you, right? You have somebody confessing these feelings for you and you're just not attracted to that. Like, I guess, what more can you do, right? But basically from then on, it kind of turned into this huge emotional mess because, so yeah, it was tough getting that out. And I think his response was a bit, I mean, it didn't make me feel bad, but it definitely did leave me like, okay, well, at least he doesn't hate me, but now what? Which was like my expectations, I guess, of something coming out of it, right? Because like I didn't tell him for no reason, right? I had an expectation, and best case scenario was he would like reciprocate. Worst case scenario, he like completely hated me, but it was somewhere in the middle. And I think after that, it kind of just turned into me trying to handle those emotions, right? And I don't know, like, how would I describe it? Like juggling them and being friends with him, but also wanting more. And when you're in like, it turned into like, we would hang out and it would be really fun. Like, you guys, we would spend hours together, like on Discord calls. And I didn't know him like in real life. I've met him one time and it was like great, but like mostly spent time online. And like, it was insane how much time we spent together. Like, we could literally talk for hours. Like, we'd have 5-6 hour Discord calls for like several times in a week. Like, I'm talking 4, maybe 5 days. I'd get off work sometimes and I would call him immediately, or he would call me. It felt very relationship-y, if that makes any sense. And it was very confusing because after I told him all of that, right, like, I don't want to make reasonings for him, or like, maybe I want to say maybe it boosted his ego, maybe it made him feel good about himself, which, I mean, great. But I think I took that a little too, like, I took it too much into account for myself about what it meant for us. And that was a big mistake because I should not have. It wasn't about us. It was about him feeling good because, you know, somebody really, really liked him. You know, that to some people, it might just feel good to hear somebody's into you, right? I don't get invested into people like normally the same way. Like, obviously, if somebody's like attractive or if I find them interesting, you know, there's always like that chemistry. But this was different. This was like, there was no, I didn't want to like get to know him more, and I slowly got to know him more, and I got really emotionally invested in him, and that's kind of what like snowballed into me like falling in love with this person. And I knew it was more, I knew it was different from my other relationships because the feelings that I had developed were really, I don't know, tumultuous, I guess. I wanted more from this person. I was afraid of losing them. I was really insecure around them sometimes about myself, like about who I was as a person, which I had never, I mean, not that I never experienced it, but I never really cared about what other people thought for the most part. Like I was fat, so like obviously I have insecurities, but not like that, right? Like it was really weird. But like a year after all of this, I want to say maybe a little less. I basically tried to convince myself that I was not interested in him, right? Like I thought, oh, I could fool myself into believing I don't have feelings for this person, that I actually never loved him and I actually never really cared. It was just me wanting to be him, right? Like, oh, that's what I convinced myself was what I wanted. I just wanted to be this person. I wanted to be who he was. Ambitious, job oriented, like, you know, money focused, family, like blah blah blah. And I did that for like a few months, and I remember having a complete breakdown. And that kind of started a whole spiral of like this really destructive behavior from me, where I would go into these episodes of telling myself I was okay, over and over and over. And then when I got to a breaking point of I couldn't handle it anymore, I would snap and I would just never want to talk to this man again. I would disconnect. I would delete stuff, socials, messages, any like the videos I thought we were working on or something. We would do a lot of partnered stuff with other like content creators, and it turned into me like separating myself a lot of the times from these groups to try to get away from him in a very like unhinged way, I want to say, looking back at it, right? But obviously it would never work. I did this like 3 or 4 times, I want to say. But the third time I did it, he basically gave me an ultimatum of if I was to do this to him again, he would just not want to be friends with me, which I can't blame him. Because again, that first time it happened because I was not being honest with myself. I was basically trying to lie myself into, you know, invalidating my own emotions to try to get out of this headspace of my feelings for him. And it didn't work, right? I stayed away from him for like a week, maybe even less than that. And I would come back and I would be like crying because it was like a lot of emotions, right? And I wasn't good at handling it by myself at the time. So I'd go to him or I'd go to friends and they would comfort me. And at the time, my friends were very supportive of me, right? And I guess the way I would speak about him and the things I would tell him, I would tell them about him, it made him look really bad. And my friends would admit that, like, no, that's not what it is, right? Like, it basically turned into a lot of what was I telling them and how was I making him look? And my friends would deny that, like, that affected how they saw him or how they treated him, but it happened enough to where they would treat him differently, and I would see it and he would see it. And like, obviously it was my fault initially. Like, I can't control how people react, but I can control what I tell them. And I kind of learned that the hard way several times because, like, I don't know, people get tired, right, of dealing with bullshit if you're doing it constantly. But it was like, that was the crazy thing for me. I would have these like episodes of trying to change myself or find myself, and it would turn into like this whole like delusional thing, and then I'd get to like a breaking point and it would just like snap for me. And it was the same pattern, but every time it was different lessons. And I hate that it took losing such a good friend, right, to learn these lessons, because it just feels bad, man. Like, it doesn't feel good, right, to have people make decisions about somebody that you really, really like because of the things you tell them, and they tell you it's not because of that. But like when your friend gets hurt, right, you want to be hurt for them too. And I get it. I don't blame people for wanting to get defensive for me. I like blame myself, and not like in a I feel guilty about it. It's more of a like in a I have to take responsibility where I think it's there. And I don't think people make decisions just for me, right? Like obviously they're making their own decisions based on how they know this person, their interactions with them. So it's just a lot of things. And yeah, basically like this is why I said at the beginning, do not go to like a bunch of people, because I don't think it helps anybody, especially if you guys have the same friends. Like it just ends up fucking you in the ass, fucking him in the ass, fucking them in the ass. I don't know. And not in the way you want. But yeah, like basically I went back to him and I explained to him that like I was trying to, because I had told him I wasn't into him anymore. And he was like, okay, right? When I told him that, he was like, okay, whatever. Like he didn't care. And that was fine. But then like I had to confess that no, that was just like trying really hard not to have those feelings. And he basically, like, I remember he told me, yeah, I know. And that felt horrible, because like I wasn't even good at pretending like I didn't have those feelings, which sucked. But yeah, like, I don't know, it was very strange. That was a very strange time in my life. Yeah, basically, like, whenever that would happen, like I said before, it happened like 3 or 4 times. And he would accept my apologies, right? He would tell me it was fine, but like obviously I was hurting him. And it feels bad because I really, really loved this person, not only romantically, but as a friend as well. So obviously it feels bad to hurt the people you love, right? Man, I'm all over the place. I feel like this is going to be a fucking mess. I I didn't want to do this alone because I feel like I'm really bad at what do you call it? Like I have this shit written down, but I feel like I'm really bad at expressing my thoughts, because I don't know, especially with this topic, it makes me really nervous still, because there's still like a lot of emotion in it for me. Not because I like I'm in love with him. I'm not. It took a lot to get to where I am today. It was a lot of basically pain, a lot of losing friends, right, to get to here. And where I am now is we're not friends. I think for about a year now, my feelings for him have definitely diminished. There's a lot of things that we would discuss, especially like the second time I left and I came back. I remember talking to him about how, this is why I say like I had the privilege of being able to like talk to him, right? I told him how I felt. He told me it was fine. We could stay friends. He didn't mind. And when I told him that I was trying to like get over him, he said that he knew I wasn't. And I don't know, it gave me like a bigger understanding of him and his emotional intelligence of like, okay, well, at least he sees, right? You know what it looks like when somebody wants you. And after that, it kind of turned into this really weird, I don't want to say it was a game for him because I don't know his intentions. And I don't want to assume his intentions, but it was an interesting time for me emotionally, because the third time I remember I like had this emotional fucking tornado happen. We had discussed how if we wanted to stay friends, we needed to be honest with each other about our feelings. I had told him again, like previously, you know, doesn't this feel like more to you? I remember telling him, like, don't you think that it feels like we're more than friends sometimes? And I remember him saying yes, that it felt like we were more. And that kind of fucked me up because it didn't give me false hope, but it did make me like hold on to him harder, because I'd be like, well, maybe in the future, right? And this is why I say it's like I got to stay friends with him and talk to him about this stuff as it happened. And I don't think that's good, because this is like the other day, Chaco, I don't remember which podcast it was in, but they had said the worst thing they can say is no. And I don't agree with that statement. I think the best thing somebody can tell you if they ask you out and they outright reject you is no, right? Like that's the best case scenario, because if I had not kept talking to him, right, when I was trying to figure out my emotions, we never would have had the discussion of, well, don't you feel like this could be more? Don't you feel like it is more? Like, don't you have these feelings that we're connected in a way? Like I literally asked him this stuff, right? Because I wanted it to be the nail in the coffin. I wanted him to tell me no, like it's not like that for me, right? I wanted him to say, like, I just see you as a friend and that's it. Like, and he did say that, but then there was these like, and it's like, okay. And I don't know if he was doing it for me to like not make me feel worse, or if he was like doing it for himself because he liked how I treated him, basically, when I, because I did give him special attention. I did give him special like treatment because, of the way I felt for him. And obviously he saw that. And that was actually like, I think anyway, that it was like a contributing factor in why our relationship kind of deteriorated towards the end. But yeah, I remember that very clearly. There's a lot of other things that happened where at the time I thought I was reading too much into them. I thought I was like looking for a reason, right? To be like, oh my God, no, this might work out, like at the time. But looking back, I realized that there was certain things he was doing and saying either to feed his ego or to feed mine, where it was intentional, right? That, it could have been more, basically. And I think that's why it's important to remove yourself from the situation, because I don't think he was like intentionally trying to emotionally manipulate me. And that's like, right, me saying that as like, I don't know his intentions. I tried to get his intentions out of him several times, because I'd confront him about things. I'd be like, well, why did you do this and say that? And it never really ended with a straight answer, basically. Haha, get it? Because gay. Anyway, it didn't really like go anywhere. Because he wouldn't be able to tell me basically like what he meant by this or what he meant by that. And that only made things worse, because I'd end up really confused. And I'd end up really overthinking things I shouldn't have. Because if I had just taken the no, right, and if I hadn't asked any more questions, if this person wasn't available for me to like continue to like probe, what else could I do, right? What else would there be? Nothing. Like there's nothing there. And you have no choice but to accept it as what it is, right? But because I had him either not wanting to lose me as a friend, which I think is what it was, be able to answer certain questions for me, it turned into this, well, there's a lot of like interpretation here, right? And it's not that I was looking for a reason, right? Because I would try to get direct answers. Like I don't know how to like I'm trying to put this in a way where it doesn't make him look really fucking bad, because both of us were in it, right? And my intention isn't to, like, some of you guys might know who I'm talking about, but my intention isn't to make this person look bad. It was really confusing for both of us because he didn't want to lose me as a friend, I'm sure. And I didn't either. I didn't want to lose him as a friend, but I also still had these, like, you know, really messy, unresolved feelings. And I remember one of the last times where we had, like, because I don't want to say I forced him into, like, the deeper discussions about us, like, as friends, but it did happen like 2 or 3 times. And the last time I remember, I asked him, I'm like, why do you like me so much? Why do you keep wanting to have me in your life after, like, all the pain I've caused you? And I remember him just telling me, like, it's because I adore you so much. And that really hurt me, because it's not that I didn't think I deserved it, but I don't know, like, those kind of words, I guess, matter to me a lot. And like, that kind of language, I would tell him all the time, like, you can't do that. It's not fair. Like, it doesn't, like, we know what words mean, right? And to me, that's something you say to somebody that you not only love, but that you, like, you know, that you're in love. I would, like, I don't know. It was very strange. It's I can't get into it because, again, it's like a lot of personal stuff that happened between us. A lot of, and I don't even want to say it's like miscommunications, because, like, another thing that would happen is when I was, like, in it with him, I guess I was, like, in a really messy relationship with this kind of abusive guy, and he knew, because unfortunately my ex would, like, make it his business. So a lot of the things that, you know, should not have been told were told to him, either indirectly or, like, as a means of revenge against me, I guess. It was a disaster, and he learned a lot about me, unfortunately, unintentionally, because of this person being a shitter. And it was really embarrassing, I guess, at the time. But I remember specifically one of these, like, times that we had, like, these deep conversations. I told him how there's certain times where it feels like he's, like, not my ex, this guy that I was in love with, my straight friend. There was times where it felt like he was, because we would, like, do video calls, right? And he would have his cam on, not me, because, like, what am I gonna do? I don't have a cam. But it would feel like he was trying to show me a little more than he meant to, if that makes sense. But, like, I confronted him about that too one time, and when I did, it stopped happening. And at the time, I didn't really think about it too much, right? Because, like, I was telling myself that it wasn't intentional, that, right, it was, like, just me reading into it too much. But, like, after, when I started to notice that it was happening less frequently, it was not occurring in the same way that it had, I started to realize maybe I'm not reading into these things too much, because I don't know, like, why would it stop, right? If it's not something that you were ever actually actively doing, I don't know, maybe I made him self-conscious and he actively tried to not do it. It became, like, this whole mess, and I would really try to read into, like, the behavior, but it didn't do anything for me, because it would just really, really confuse me, because this person was, like, very emotionally, I don't want to say unintelligent, but not very in tune, right? They were very focused on themselves. And but yeah, when I would try to, like, talk about, you know, these things, or, like, how I felt, it was very unproductive, because nobody can help you with your feelings about anything. Like, your friends can sit there and listen to you all day, Um, your therapist can sit there and listen to you all day, but they don't have the answers. I went to therapy, and I went to 3 therapists actually, because the first 2 told me to straight up leave this person, to like cut communications. And I was like, well, I don't want to do that, right? It was very selfish. The third guy, finally, I told him my situation, and he was like, well, if you're really unwilling to let this person go, we can try to work something out or figure something out, I guess. And I remember I remember one very specific session where he this was like 2 or 3 sessions in, and he was basically like, well, what do you do when you break up with an ex? Because I had just broken up with my ex. And I'm like, be sad? I didn't know. I didn't fucking know. He was like, no, you stop talking to them, right? You let them go. And I realized, like, obviously he was trying to get me to stop talking to this straight man who I had these feelings for, because we had basically talked about how it could be very confusing in friendships where this happens, because even though you never date, it could feel right. It could have those signs of, a relationship, because of all the emotional work you're doing, because of all the, things that you're going through together. It could be very tiring, basically. And even though it's not an actual like romantic relationship, any relationship is still work. And yeah, basically I was like, no, I'm not willing to do that. And I would tell him this like as a point of pride for myself. I'd be like, oh, you know how many times people would tell me to stop talking to you and I never did, because like I really, really liked you. And I felt like it was supposed to be a fucking, what do you call it? I felt like it was supposed to make him feel better. But looking back, it's like, damn, you're kind of a bitch. Like, how's it supposed to make him feel better that everybody is telling, you to stop talking to him? And I think he would take it like really personally, which I guess I don't blame him for, because again, like the emotional intelligence was not, at the same level where I am. Yeah, but basically, like, I really liked him and I didn't want to let him go. And in the long run, that ended up hurting both of us a lot, because it's not up to him, and it's right, like, to be like, oh, I don't want to be friends with you. Like, if that had happened, because right, I just wouldn't have wanted to talk to him, because I would have just thought he was homophobic if he didn't want to talk to me, right, because of my feelings. But he was, just a pretty open dude, and it felt weird, like, every time we would talk about our feelings, because he didn't really ever know how I felt, or care maybe was the word. I don't know. It was very strange, because I was putting in a lot more of the effort than he was, even in our just normal friendship. And the last year, right, where I was like already over him, it by the way, like, it was really hard to get over him. Like, I want to say it basically, like, I didn't fall out of love with him because I wanted to. It was more of a, well, you need to do this, right, if you want to have a healthy relationship with this person. And it was such a weird, like, I tried to make myself hate me. I remember that was another thing. I really didn't like myself for like, I don't know, like 4 or 5 months, because I was like, well, what's the point in, showing all this love to people? I was very cringe core. It was very like edgy vibes, if that makes sense. Like, oh, like, if I'm just gonna get hurt, why would I even care about anybody, right? Like, it basically, I hated myself for being able to like give out my love so freely to the people who I care about the most. Basically turned into me hating that about myself. I hated being nice. I hated being able to like just talk to mostly anybody and be okay. But like from that I realized, oh, like you don't have to talk to everybody, you don't have to be nice to everybody. And it's not like I was, right? Like if I hated you, I hated you, and you would know, because well, I don't have time for that, right? Like I want to leave space in the life for the people that I really, really care about. And it was very depressive and bad time for me, because I guess I was trying to change myself, not to become a better person. I just wanted to be a different person so that these feelings would go away. Like, I don't know. It was strange. And I had Stealth, actually, the guy who's on the podcast sometimes, he helped me through a lot of it. And I don't know, I really appreciate him for like sticking through, because I was at a point like when I was having this problem where I didn't want to talk to people anymore. I felt like every time I would go to somebody to like tell them about my problems or vent, or especially about him, like my straight friend, that it would always end up blowing up in my face. It would always end up being a big problem where it felt like they would make an assumption about him, and I'd have to be like, well, that's not really how I meant it. It's just like, it's because of the way they know him, right? And it would just turn really bad. It was very strange. But he helped me basically like understand that being like nice isn't a bad thing. That this was gay because we were playing Final Fantasy, and I don't know, it's one of those games where there's like a lot of characters in it, and you see yourself in some of these people, and like one of the characters I think that I really connected with was just like, I don't know, this really fucking weird ass. The Stealth knows who it is. He was like I want to say he was like what I considered the worst parts of me at the time, or maybe a little before, like when I was playing this game of Stealth. I feel like I had gotten a little bit better. Again, the timeline for me is like a mess, because I wasn't in my head a lot of the time. But I remember, no, this is gonna make me cry. I remember there was a line that he said, and it's not like, it doesn't make me feel good in the way that it's like cope, right? Or that I don't think I can do other things, but I don't know, it made me feel like I told myself that I didn't matter too much. This is tough. Like I literally went through a whole transformation because of this person. Or I was trying to, and like it wasn't until I like actually like accepted myself that I was like, oh, okay, like this is just who you are, and you having these feelings isn't a bad thing. It's just something that's happening. And like I really like this person because I like the thesis of who I am is like my closest friends. I just like, if you're my super close friend, you know that I just want the best for you. I want to see you do well. I want to see you grow. And he was like, the guy I was in love with was like the epitome of this, right? Like, I would try to be there for him. I would try to like listen to his problems. I would try to give him advice. But yeah, we played this stupid little game, Final Fantasy, and there was this one character, and he had this line. And the line is okay. The line is basically to help them realize their dreams. I can't do it. It's like it's a dialogue. It's just how I feel about my friends in general. Like, it's just, they are truly remarkable individuals, and I'm proud to call them my friends. To help them realize their dreams. This would be my greatest contribution to the world. Like, it feels so stupid, right? To like get emotional over this, but Like if I had to write a thesis on who I am as a person, like that's it. And it sucked. That's why it hurt so much when like I had these feelings, because I don't know, it felt really bad, man. Like I didn't want to have them. It sucked. It was painful. It made me feel like I was a bad friend. I felt really guilty. I would beat myself up about it a lot. I had some people tell me that it was just like something it would get over really quickly. And it didn't happen, right? It wasn't something that I got over really quickly. And it was because I think, again, I was able to like surround myself with him, and I lost so many good friends because of it. And it's like, it's not as sad for me to say those things as it used to be. Like the stuff that hurts now is, I don't know, the stuff that hurts now is different. It's, oh God, I don't, like, this episode is going to be such a fucking disaster because I don't even know how to like keep my thoughts straight. I have my notes here. I did the how I got over it. Basically, literally just like sheer force of will, right? Like, it wasn't something that was realistic. It's not something that could ever happen. It wasn't like, no matter, that was the thing, right? Like it was really confusing talking to this guy because he would tell me things and he'd be like, but, or like, even if it wasn't intentional, right? It would really confuse me that there was no clear emotional intention, right? Because, and I think it was more about him wanting to keep me as a friend, right, than giving me hope that there was ever going to be anything else. Or I don't know, like even now, like it doesn't matter to me though, because it doesn't matter. Like I can't care about it because otherwise it would still keep haunting me, right? And it's not like this happened like a fucking year ago. No, this literally happened like at the beginning of this year, I want to say, where I had this like realization of I was already out of love with him, but it was still like haunting me, of like the confused feelings that I would have. And I even talked to Stealth about it, like not too long ago, right? About how it was just really weird. It felt weird to me, and it was driving me crazy that I wouldn't get answers to some of those things. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, because it just doesn't matter. Like there's nothing he could have said to make me feel better. And there's nothing, you know, that he could have offered me, right, to like, unless I don't know, maybe if he were more honest with himself, but it wasn't happening, so I had to like get over it. What happened to our friendship? That's another thing that I wrote down. Basically, it was going fine, I want to say, for about a year. I want to say a year. Like I don't know, again, the timeline for me is a mess. But I definitely prioritized him a lot less than I would, and I even told him, I gave him the I guess privilege of me telling him like, hey, you're gonna be seeing these changes from me, right? It was like I sat him down and I was his boss or some shit. And I basically told him like, you know, when I had these feelings for you, I would give you kind of like this specialist treatment. And he was still my favorite person, right? To like go to and hang out with, to talk to just be with. But there was certain things that I did like do, and I afforded him because, you know, of how I felt. Like if I was hanging out with my other friends, he could just come and take me at any time, and I'd be like, yes, let's go. Or if he wanted to do something, like he would get that time, no questions asked. Like this last time when me and Stealth were playing Final Fantasy, it was, I don't want to say it was confusing for him. Oh, sorry, my nose is running because I'm a bitch. It was like, I want to say that's like the first time where I was prioritizing myself, and I was really into Final Fantasy. I was really playing this game right for me. And I remember he got really upset with me because he was like, well, I understand that you're going through stuff, and if you have to talk to Stealth about it, that's fine, but like I'm not going to be sitting here waiting for you forever. And I'm like, okay, well, like he was like, yeah, he got a little pissy about it, but it was also because, right, of the expectation he had of me already. And this was a pattern that would happen in a lot of my friendships, where I would be giving and giving, and I'd give so much to the other person. Like, I want to say that these relationships would be like 75% to whatever the fuck the rest of the math is. I don't fucking know. And eventually I'd get really tired. Like, this happened with, I want to say 2 or 3 previous of my friends, where I'd get really tired of like giving, and it basically turned into me taking back my time at the end, right? These people notice, people who like to take, right? They'll notice that you're not giving as much as you used to, and they don't like it. Well, because like, right, either they don't like it because either they expect a certain kind of treatment, or because they're used to it. And I don't blame, like, I never like took it as him being a bad thing, because I knew, right? I already knew like this was gonna happen because I've experienced it before. So I was like, okay, well, I just have to like stick to my guns, right? And like, you know, do this. But then I made the mistake of talking to him again, and he told me how, like, blah blah blah, all this stuff about how he, it doesn't matter. Like, the details don't matter. It basically turned into me feeling bad for him and wanting to spend more time with him, which I did again. And I didn't realize how tired I was getting of like not being his friend, but like how I had gotten to the point where I wouldn't tell him things about me. And this was like just ingrained in me, because over the course of 5 years, it had just been something that, right? Like, I never talked about myself to him too often. He wouldn't really ask. And I'm not the kind of person to just like start, you know, saying shit. But yeah, basically I would get really tired, right, of not being able to like, and I don't expect all my friends to be like these trauma dumping receptacles that I could just go and like, right? Like, Chaco's a good example. I've said it before, where Chaco has an expectation. They're like, don't come to me with your stupid problems and we can be friends. And I love that, because it tells me where Chaco is, right? But he would like tell me like, oh, I do want to hear about you. I do want to know about your day. I do want to blah, 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 blah. But then when like it would come time to like where I would try to, you know, vent, or I would try to tell him things, it just felt like, I don't know, it would feel like I wasn't being heard. And that feels bad. It feels bad when, you know, you're trying to tell somebody something and it seems like they're not paying attention. And it happened enough to where it felt really embarrassing sometimes to tell him things, and then just realize, oh, well, he's not, you know. And I wouldn't have had that expectation of him if he hadn't, you know, told me that he, right? Like, it's not like I expect people to just be there to listen to me. No, like, that's why I appreciate stuff, because he, I don't know, he'll talk about stuff, and I don't know, he's just a great person, man. Like, I love that man. He's great. But yeah, like, I got to the point where I was really tired, and I was going through a lot of shit at the time. Like, this was a month before we stopped talking, or I stopped talking to him. And this had nothing to do with him. Like, for the first time, me not talking to him, right? It had nothing to do with him, which is so fucking ironic. Like, that we don't talk anymore, not because I actively wanted to, but it's just like a really bad decision that I made. But it's like, it's funny to me now, right? But at the time, it was miserable. Not even like, okay, let me get into it. Basically, a month before like we stopped talking, I was really in my head, because like I have a very complicated home life, and there's like a lot of expectations of me here, and it gets really exhausting sometimes. I'm not really sure how to like, because it's not like, details don't really matter. Just know that it's like I don't really have anybody in my life to like talk to about my problems. Um, so I rely on myself a lot, but I get tired, right, of being alone. I get tired of feeling lonely. I get tired of feeling like there's nobody there. And I know that I have a lot of friends who tell me, hey, if you need a shoulder, like I'm here. Hey, if you need, and I appreciate you guys so much. But it just, I don't like telling everybody things. Like, again, over the years, from what I've learned, it just doesn't work out. I don't, it does, it feels, I don't know. It's like almost like, you know, when you burn yourself on a stove and you do it over and over, it feels kind of like that. And I've learned that, you know, my emotions, I should deal with them anyway. But sometimes I don't want to deal with the emotions, you know, him. He's him. But yeah, basically, I was at a non-functioning level of me being aware of how I was feeling because I was tired. I was being beaten down. I was being like just treated shit. And it was like 2 months of this. And at the month mark of me feeling like absolute fucking garbage, I remember him telling me like friends aren't work or something along those lines. Like he was in therapy, the straight guy that I was in love with. And I remember him telling me, my therapist told me that friends aren't supposed to be work. And even though, like, he told me that he really liked me because, like, I was easy to talk to, right? And wasn't a lot of effort. And he said that friends weren't supposed to be work. I remember that hurting like fucking hell because I guess he didn't realize like what he was saying to me, right? And I don't think he meant it in a way to harm me. But it hurt because he didn't understand that I made it easy to talk to him, right? I made it easy to, you know, have somebody like, I don't know, I was there because I wanted to be there. And it would always just be this thing of questioning, like, why do you want to keep being my friend? Like, why, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I remember after that, it kind of started to like deteriorate my brain as well. I mean, I felt like I wasn't doing enough work for, you know, the person I work for. And I was also starting TTU and U, which like, okay, if you're looking at it and you're like, well, who's listening? It doesn't matter, girl. Like it's a project that I was working on with other people. And it was like a lot of effort. It was a lot of work, right? These things take work. Otherwise, you know, the people just would do them easy peasy, which yeah, some people apparently do. But yeah, like it was a month, that was a month before. And like the day that I stopped talking to him, I remember I specifically wanted to hang out with him because it's easy. Because he doesn't ask me questions, because he doesn't, like, he never showed interest in the stuff that I was going through. So I knew I wouldn't have to talk about it, right? Excuse me. Like, I would kind of use him as a scapegoat, I want to say, but it would always end up backfiring on me because he was still my friend. I really liked him and I did want him to care. Again, because, you know, we had a conversation about how we were supposed to care and how we would be honest and blah, 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 whatever. And in the end, I remember I was feeling so shit. I was so in my head that I was just like, okay, I'm going to go because like I could feel myself becoming a bitch and I didn't want to like do it to him, right? Like I didn't want to be a dick. And I remember him messaging me and what he said to me, acting fucking weird, get well soon or whatever, side face emoji. And I remember reading that and I was like, okay, like whatever. I got really in my head about it because it made me feel bad because he didn't even like, you know how like it sucks that nobody understands you, right? Like that's like the worst feeling in the world, right? Nobody getting you. But at least nobody understanding you, it feels like they don't know you're miserable, maybe. But this one hurt because he knew that something was wrong with me. And instead of asking, like, oh, I hope you're okay, and, you know, like, is something wrong? Are you... It sucked extra hard because it didn't, like, he didn't, right? And it wasn't what was said, it was what wasn't, I guess. And yeah, that's my fault, sure. But, like, we're supposed to be good friends, right? We're supposed to be these best pals. And I would always make effort to, you know, like, understand what he was going through, or like if he was treating me different, I would be like, are you okay? Like, is something wrong? And again, I wouldn't have this expectation if it wasn't an expectation that was set. Like, I don't want to like look like this needy little fuck, because to most of my friends I'm not. I would hope so. But I remember I was like, wow, that sucks. And I was thinking about it and thinking about it, and I was already like so tired and so beaten down that I was like, am I gonna have to talk to him about this? Am I gonna have to, like... And I was like overthinking it, and I remember just being like, I don't want to think about this, I don't want to deal with it. And I had already gone into a different game, and I had messaged him if he wanted to play with us, and he was like, oh, now you want to play games? And for some reason, that was what tipped me over the edge. I was like, you son of a bitch. And I just remember, like, completely, like, my mind, I remember it went blank, and I was just like, whatever. And I sent him a really mean message. It was like, I don't know why I'm even fucking nice to you. Because I wanted to make him feel bad. I remember that. And I just, like, completely disconnected from him. I removed him from things. I didn't block him because, like, my intention wasn't to get rid of him, right? I couldn't deal with him, and I didn't want to, and I was going through so much shit already that I had, like, other things to worry about. And this happened on, like, the 30th of November, and I remember I didn't think about anything, I'm gonna be honest, until, like, January, because that's when I finally got to process some of the shit that had happened to me before. And I think at the beginning of February is when I got, like, really, you know, in my emotions about it, and I was able to, like, finally understand, oh, I hurt him a lot. It wasn't because of him, it was because of all the other shit that I was going through. And I don't know, it was just a really unfortunate series of events. And it basically led to me, discontinuing communication, and him sticking to his word about, well, if I did it again, that would be the last time we would ever speak. So it's kind of hard for me to blame him, for not wanting to talk. But I definitely think that I don't know, it almost feels like not having that, like, extra grace for him, because I did have that extra, me being in love was so much more, I think, to the friendship. So it made a lot of things more excusable. And when I just couldn't do it, like, I was basically treating him like anybody else who I didn't have time for, if that makes any sense. And just, I think he saw that, and it sucks. Yeah, it sucks. But I don't know. It's so weird. Like, it's very weird to talk about even now, because it's a lot of, not things I don't care about, but, like, I feel bad about other things, right? Like, I don't feel bad about doing it because I didn't, at the time, I wasn't thinking, like, oh, he's never going to talk to me if it wasn't going through my head at all. I wasn't thinking about anything. I just wanted to not deal with it, not deal with him, not deal with anything. And I mean, yeah, that's I don't know. That we just don't talk because of that. It wasn't even because of anything else that I can really think of, honestly. But you know, this basically was the lead up to everything else that had happened before, where because of the way I felt, you know, I had already done this. So yeah. Um I think um I think disconnecting from him would have been or sooner, right? Would have saved both of us a lot of pain, and it would have saved both of us, I don't want to say a lot of time, because I don't think I wouldn't have like been his friend, but I definitely don't think it would have been as intense. I don't know, but like I ask myself a lot of times, even now, I'm like, how do you know that, you know, you were in love with him and this wasn't just like some kind of moment of like lapse in judgment, right? Of liking somebody who you knew you couldn't have. And if I'm being honest, I don't know. I do not know. To me, the love was very real. To me, it was very like different. It helped me realize what it feels like to be in love. It was a lot of really new feelings mixed with like, you know, old things. I don't know if that makes any sense. And as unfortunate as it is that I hurt someone, because I did hurt him a lot, I also grew a lot, but like at the expense of that's what I feel guilty about now, right? Like how much I have grown, I question it sometimes. I question whether my growth is even good because of, you know, what I put other people through and my friends. Like I basically left, it feels to me like I left a trail of bodies to learn a few lessons. And like I'm grateful, I guess, that I got to like know myself. Like I've never been more sure of myself than I am now. And it's like such a pain in the ass that it took losing my best friend in the world, right, to get to this point. It took falling in love with somebody who can never have those feelings. Took, you know, feeling the loneliest I've ever felt in my life. Um, it, it's horrible. It's not fun, and like I made a bunch of mistakes. I told him things about myself that nobody else knows about me, and it's embarrassing sometimes. I mean, I don't even want to say it's embarrassing for me. I just feel like I made him really uncomfortable, and I regret that. Like, it's it's a lot of mixed feelings right now for me, I guess. But ultimately, I don't know. Like, that's so tough. Like asking myself, would you do it again? That is such a like difficult question, because the truth is, I don't know. I wouldn't do things the same, but that's me having the knowledge, right? And if I had the knowledge, like if I could go back to when I realized how I felt about him, if I could go back to that moment, if I could keep all the experiences that I had, ah man, see, and this is what makes me emotional. If I could, you know, take all of the stuff that I know now and keep that knowledge in that moment that I realized that I was in love with him and spare him the trouble, I would do that, because I mean, it ended up being the same thing, right? We don't talk, but I just put him through a bunch of bullshit. And I don't know, I hate hurting people. It's like It's like the worst feeling to me. I don't, especially the people I love. I don't like hurting the people I love. And, you know, I don't know if it's a regret. I don't know if it's a regret, but it's definitely, it feels bad, man. And yeah, I don't know if you're struggling with this shit, like, your feelings are valid and you don't need anybody to tell you that. Like, take yourself seriously. Don't downplay what you're feeling. Like, you need to be there for you, because if you ask a bunch of people, you're going to get a bunch of different responses, and some people aren't going to take you seriously. Some people are going to say that you're like a joke. But like, you know yourself and you know your emotions, and just trust, you know, what those feelings are, because you're the one that's, you know, going through them. Yeah, like, I don't know what else I could, like, I wrote down a lot of stuff, but I guess like the final reason that I'm doing this is just kind of like to get this like final thing out of the way, because I feel like it's really helpful to hear myself talk about this stuff. And it was a mess. Like, I'm so sorry if you listen to this podcast and you're like, holy shit, what a fucking, like, yeah, it was a disaster, because like I was all over the place, and I don't know, I'm not really good at formulating my thoughts down. But yeah, I know. I guess that's it. The last thing I wrote, man, and this sucks to read, like, because I got to meet him in person. And I remember that day very well, because it was like, I don't know, it was fun. It was good, but maybe I can read this and we'll see how it turns out in the podcast. If I don't like how it sounds, I'm gonna cut it out. If I cry, I'm gonna cut it out. Okay, let me see. But yeah, I basically wrote this down, and I want you guys to understand that this came from not how I'm feeling now, or maybe these are like feelings that are just unresolved as well, but this came from like my perspective of this day being such a good day because I got to meet the man that I was in love with, and the way I remember it even now is very, like, now, before I had written it, I would remember it very positively, and now I remember it as something so neutral. But it still hurts to read that, like 2 weeks ago when I wrote this down, I still had like, right, this I still thought of it this way. But I don't know, it's so weird. Like, I don't know, emotions are fucking weird, man. Like, but okay, if this is cringe, I'm not gonna put it in. Okay, my favorite thing of all time was getting to meet you. I remember it so clearly. I remember getting to see your eyes in person, getting to hear how big your laugh was in my ear. It was like a symphony. I remember watching how happy you were showing your car off to me, and how big your smile was. I was so nervous when you were pulling up to pick me up, but seeing that smile on you and you having a cheesy joke ready to go, man, made all of those nerves turn to excitement. I felt like a little kid. I remember how happily you told me about your drive home from work as we drove on those very same streets, the places that changed and the things that never did. How you showed me your parking garage and the apartment that you heard some lady getting her cheeks clapped in. I remember you turning on stream. I remember us trolling the people there and having me talk pretending it was you. I remember everyone being so happy that we got to meet each other. I remember I didn't want the moment to end. People were asking me, is he hot? Is he hot? Because, you know, nobody knew what you looked like. You telling them I was handsome. Me lying and saying you were a 2. You were a 10 to me. The cotton candy grapes that I had with you in your apartment, I still remember how artificial they tasted. but you watching me eat them is burned into my mind, and they were so yummy. That they meant so much to me, getting to eat sushi with you, both of us eating more than we could handle, because it was all you can eat, you making me try something new, then you taking me to your favorite supermarket, and how fucking stoked you were, showing it off like you owned it. We just walked around and talked about nothing I can remember, but I remember you walking up and down the aisles of that store, showing me everything. We saw the grapes again. Then we went to your gas station. It was the most interesting place on the planet. At least you made it seem that way. You helped me pick out a smoothie, and you put some boosts in it for health. I don't know. We went outside and just sat on those metal chairs. And we talked for what seemed like forever as the sun went down. I remember you shaking your leg. I remember how pretty your eyes were in the sunset. I remember just taking you in with my eyes, knowing I would probably never see you again IRL. I remember wanting to hold your hand so bad. How I wanted to roll your fingers and stubby nails in my hand, but I just stared, because I couldn't believe you were real. I remember going back to your place to get my Uber. We talked some more and just waited. I like how you showed me what it looked like when you would play Overwatch. I even brought it up to you, and you didn't remember. I had a picture, but I didn't want you to think I was weird, so I never told you. It's the one pic of you that I still have. I got the alert that my Uber was outside waiting for me. We walked down and out of your apartment. I remember I told you that you didn't need to walk me out, but you insisted. I was afraid that I would cry. I wanted to hug you. And we just shook hands. I went back to my hotel so giddy, and I woke up the next day and felt so sad. And I felt miserable for the whole rest of the trip, even though I tried to feel happy. But I couldn't lie. I told your meeting was a mistake because you became so much more that day. I never cared about your money, how attractive you were, or that you had a girlfriend. It was the most selfish thing I did, thinking that there was a chance. I regret hurting you over and over, but I don't regret being in love. It still brings me so much emotion because it makes it real. Getting to meet you made it real. I'm writing this down in the hopes that I stop reliving this. It's so clear, all of the things that we did are so vivid, even after all these years. And I just hope that they fade a bit now that I've immortalized them in my writing. But hope might not be the right word. I'm sorry this episode was like a depressing mess. I don't know if it was depressing, but I appreciate you guys if you're still listening, and if you're going through something like this, just know that as much as it sucks now, it does feel better later. And yeah.